Well, I don't know what's going on. Hold on one second. I don't know why that was in front of me. That's supposed to be behind me. It's all good. Oh, it was an overlay. I was looking at the wrong thing. It should have been that one. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's it. I just figured I would hang out for a few minutes. Everybody's doing lives. I want to make sure that the stream is not doing that whole freeze thing again tonight. And, making sure everything's going good. Hopefully everybody's having a good day. I'm still getting the in and out thing. Am I freezing tonight? Possibly. So let me see. Yeah, it looks like I'm freezing up. I don't know why I'm freezing up with this stupid thing. I don't know what to do to keep it from doing that, but hopefully everybody's having a good day and your bees are doing good. It was in the 80s today here. Still about 70 degrees outside right now here. So I think we're going to see things starting to ramp up. Hopefully that Carolina Jasmine is not going to do anything hideous to my bees. But supposedly it is not good for the bees. So we're trying to, keep that stuff going. So let me drop a link if anybody wants to come in, and we'll get that going. Whatever you come on and talk about, James, I'm just posting the link right now. And let me pin that message so we could talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Watch the Dirt Rooster on the other channel. 20 ounces of wax for $10. I guess that's not bad because that's over a pound, right? So that's not bad. Usually it's about $10 a pound around here. Oh, you just made 50 degrees and now they're talking about snow again on Friday? That's crazy. Well, it won't be long. It won't be long, James. It'll come back to you. I've actually got my pajamas on. So we got the Wednesday night pajama jam beekeeping chat. So come on in if you want to chat for a minute. I'm not going to go too long unless James comes on and we get on a tangent and we end up talking for a long time. Just saw the stream team kind of had to take the night off tonight. So I watched Randy on the other channel. Oh, I don't have the onesie on. I got a Carhartt long sleeve shirt on and some JAMA pants. Oh, there's Charlie. Hey, Charlie. I don't hear you, and you got something in your mustache, popcorn in your mustache, or something. The other side. No, do like this. There, you got it.
Mayonnaise. Yeah, I just got out of a board meeting.
Was it a boring board meeting? Most of them are. That's why they call them. Everybody there is boring.
I don't know. It was my club meeting and a lot of financial situations and whatever. And
well, I know a place they can get swarm lure for your for your bee club at a relatively good rate. Hey there, Steve. Good to see you. So what's going on with you today?
Well, I went out to it was 52 degrees here today, but it was windy, so it felt like it's probably about 45, but no bees weren't flying. And I checked them.
55.
Yeah.
It was 82 degrees here today.
Really? Well, it was 52, not 55, but it felt like it was colder. And I went into them yesterday, I think it was in the evening, checking the nucs as far as food, because I had fed them last week with fondant. That was my last of my fondant. So I went down the stairs last night and I made up some sugar bricks. So I had bought a sheet sheet pan, I guess you call it, about 1 inch deep.
Right.
Anyway, I packed it full of sugar with water and it's 10 pounds of sugar, a cup of water, and a tablespoon of vinegar, white vinegar. And I mixed it all up with a drill and a mortar mixer or whatever they use, the mud mixer, and a bit. And then I poured it out on that sheet and rolled it out with a rolling pin. And then I measured it out where I could score. And I think I'd get 15 cakes out of it, about 3.5 by 5 inches, I think, long, something like that. Just, and it's only about time you roll it down. It's about a 1/2 inch thick, which is just right. Cause I have some on my inner covers. I put feeder rims around the edges. So you can put the inner cover back on, but you can put a pollen patty in there, or you can put a little bit of sugar in there. So I went out today at lunchtime, and it was windy. I mean, it was windy enough where I had my smoker sitting on top of one of my nucs, and it blew it over. And so I went ahead and gave them all a sugar patty. So, hey, James.
I'm the only one in my pajamas tonight.
Huh?
No pajamas tonight. It's not onesie night. I thought if it was onesie night, man, I'd be right in there.
So I got that done today at lunchtime, or about 1 o'clock, and so they're good. They're good to go for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, I guess.
So I learned this today, and I've got it growing all around my apiary.
Yeah, I've seen that stuff.
Carolina Jasmine, toxic to bees. Adds brilliant color to gardens. This is something Grammy just sent me, linked. This is what she linked. Within the U.S. Department of Agriculture plant hardiness zones 6 to 10, its yellow trumpet-shaped flowers that attract pollinators such as butterflies and bees, according to North Carolina State Extension. Despite its beauty, Carolina Jasmine is poisonous to human, pets, and livestock. No definitive scientific evidence exists on lethal effects of Carolina Jasmine on bees, but anecdotal evidence presented by Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Center suggests it may have a detrimental effect on honeybees if the nectar is consumed in large quantities. Carolina Jasmine flower contains strychnine-like alkaloids that will cause extreme illness and possibly death when consumed by humans and animals. Early symptoms include nausea, sweating. Well, I'm not going to eat any, so that's good. The presence of dead worker bees and mummified pupae and larvae in hives in areas where bees have access to Carolina Jasmine has also been reported, according to the Bee Informed Partnership. Poisoning seems to occur when the bees consume the plant's nectar in large quantities, or if there are environmental stressors at play, such as drought. So yeah, it's a good read if you're in the South and you have that. So yeah, definitely hit that link. But so yeah, you think this is what I'm saying. So after 4 years. Yeah, we've had it, but James, you and I and Charlie, we've had talks about, man, I just think that I should be further along with my bees. My bees should be doing better. They shouldn't be ramping up so slowly. And then you find out, well, your whole goddamn property is surrounded by poisonous plants. I mean, there you go. But there's nothing I can do about it, right? So it's is what it is, and we just rock on. And but it's nice to know that it's there, that I didn't know.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what it affects. Did you go over and walk around them? Are bees on the blossoms?
Well, most of them are pretty high where I can't get to them. But I haven't noticed them on it. But who knows? I mean, if they're there and they have nectar, I'm sure the bees are checking them out, Right now,
Yeah, but it's like the article said. If you have a drought and that's the only thing around, boy, they'll hone right on it. But if there's other stuff that's more prominent or they like it better, they'll go to that before they go to the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. But the only reason I even started looking at that at all is because Sam from South Carolina Happy Bees was saying he needed queen cells to make splits, and I had called yesterday down to Octavio at Cutix, and he was trying to, sell me on buying his bees again this year, and I'm like, yeah, I'm grafting now. So I said, that was my original plan. I said, and then he's like, well, you could buy some nucs, and I said, Octavio, your nuke prices are not good for me as far as what I'm doing. If you're selling to if you're selling directly to the customer, like the end user, well, that's good. But if you're trying to resell, your prices suck. And I mean, I said, I would have to sell them for what I'm buying them for. By the time I pay for the gas to go down and get it from you and bring it back, I'm not making any money. Oh, come on in and say, hey.
She's saying, come on in and say, hey.
Oh, there's the hand. The hand comes out. Hey. So that's that's what's going on. I mean, I had to be honest with them. I said, hey,
so you sell them for $200 a package or what?
Like 185 for a nuke. And then it's 205 if you take the if you get a pro nuke, or 185 if you get the wooden box. But then I got to make 2 trips down there, right? I got to drop the boxes back after I move them there. I told him I would come there and load them in my pro nukes myself if I was going to do that, and just leave his boxes behind.
They like that.
So
you okay?
But he said he said.
Oh, he's freezing up again.
Yeah.
Well, how was your day, Charlie? Well, Bob's frozen.
I was, like I said, I was feeding my nukes some sugar bricks I made last night. They could have stood another 24. They really need to go for 2 days before you use them to get them hard. But they were hard enough to where I could scoop underneath them with a hive tool and just lay them right on the hive.
Oh, yeah.
It was Lee's fault. He's in the back pulling the triggers. He's probably got me limited on. He's probably got me limited on my capabilities on the software. I don't know what's going on with it, guys. I mean,
the majority of all my hives are, there's lots of population. And I got one nuke there that's dwindling. I know it's a queenless hive. And then, I don't know, it's so cold and windy today. I'd like to take those bees out of, a couple frames of bees and shake them into another hive. But it's just, the weather just isn't, good enough to do that.
Trade you weather. I'll trade you weather.
Oh, I know. We haven't got no snow this year, so it's way better than what you got.
We're still under about 3 or 4 feet.
Well, my mentor went down to look at somebody else's bees because they were out of town, and he got this great big swarm out of a tree.
Nice.
So free bees. Hey, they weren't in your colony. They were just there when I went there.
There you go. Well, what did I do today? I
talked to Bob
I talked to Bob for an hour. Yeah, I did that. Watched a few videos. So
did you make paper today?
We made about 1,200 tons of pulp, anyways.
You just make the pulp, right? You don't make paper, right?
Correct. We just make the pulp. So our pulp up here is highly sought after. With our cold season, the pulp that we make up here has a very tightly knit cell structure. Being as the tree's growing season is so short, it's very, very tight. So our pulp is sought after all over the world.
Is it pine trees?
Well, we'll run, a combination of both. So there'll be some aspen that we put in there, but yeah, it's mainly pine and spruce. Yep. So, what else did I do though? But I got everything finished up. So my courses are starting again here. Well, actually tomorrow. So I start with a introduction to beekeeping tomorrow. So if anybody's up in the Grand Prairie area,
Be
stop
there.
on in. And worked tonight. I worked probably for about another hour and a half. So I'm putting the finishing touches on my queen rearing course that I'll be putting on this year. So it's interesting. I've tried to condense that down as best as I can, and I'm still looking at in order to give a good course, I'm still looking at about 32 hours of instruction in order to do this properly. So it's going to be an interesting course.
And have you had any? How many? I know you only wanted what, 5 students?
This first time around, a maximum of 5. I'm actually thinking I'm going to limit it at 4. So that way I
have
can
you
make.
Have you had any bites?
I haven't checked yet. The last I took a look at, it's all on Facebook and everything there now. But last I looked, I think we had something like 84 people interested. So
How many
84.
for queen rearing?
And so for queen rearing, which is exciting because I think what's finally getting out there is people are going to start taking a look at doing this. And if I could get 4 people doing it, that's 4 more people that really can teach 4 other people, and so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but how do you choose 4 out of 84?
First
Highest
to the trough.
bidder?
First to the trough. First come, first serve is basically
Yeah, but
where it's
84
at, so.
for your beekeeping course or 84 for just queen rearing?
No, 84 for the beekeeping courses. So I teach a introduction, a basic beekeeper, an advanced beekeeper, and a queen rearing course. So there's a winterization course in there as well that I also teach. So.
Well, hey Keith, glad you didn't you catch a swarm, or you just had scouts checking out your swarm traps today?
Who?
Keith Spillman, half tracks and honeybees. So.
I got to find my phone.
Is he the guy that's got the half track?
Yes.
That's the guy that was on. He sent the video up there to the Swindler team.
Yeah. He's got the half track. Hence the name half tracks and honeybees.
There you go.
Lots of scouts on 4 traps. Nice. Won't be long.
And then the last thing I did today is I was talking to 3 different people regarding different honey extraction lines that people have up for sale there. So I'm finding there's I'm learning a little bit with that as well. So what I'm finding is there's how do I put this one? There's lots of extraction lines that have been piecemealed together out there. And that kind of concerns me a little bit, to be honest with you. So the one gentleman I was talking to today, part of his extraction line was 110 volt, part was 220. The last of it was 230 volt 3-phase. Well, that's, I'll say, probably the ultimate piecemeal, I guess. So, things like that kind of really scare me. Having to get big transformers or step down transformers or 3-phase transformers or something like that in here, all of a sudden that starts to get big money. Specialty like 240, 220, 240, easy peasy. There's a lot of areas up here where I am, you can't even get 3-phase power. So I'm very much learning it's a buyer beware, and I'm glad I'm doing my homework.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we got 3-phase for the mill and all, but like you say, around here, it's like Oh, you want 3-phase? Oh yeah, we'll get you 3-phase. Well, it's going to cost you
Exactly.
so much money to have it, to get it. Then it's going to cost you so many dollars a month just to have it, plus what you pay for your bill.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when we moved here, I think a year or two before electricity came, and actually,
You are old.
not me, Mike. But you know how Comcast and Verizon, they come beating on your door. Would you like to sign up for high speed internet? You know, when they were running the lines around.
Yep.
Well, my father said that that's what they did here. Hey, we're bringing electricity through. Would you like to get electricity? You know, and then of course they had rephase for the mill. And we had an article here. It was like a little newspaper for the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, or actually it was called something else at the time. Modern sawmill uses electric motor compared to steam or gasoline, back in the day.
Yeah.
And all that. But we've never changed our quantity of electricity to be able to, so we're kind of like, people say, oh, everything's so high for everybody else. I says, you can't beat our prices.
Yeah, because you're grandfathered.
What do you mean? We're grandfathered in, and we haven't ever changed anything since day one.
Yeah.
And yes, we're limited on our power.
You got the glass fuses that you got to screw in?
No, we don't have those, but we used to have a meter.
2 poles with the wires that are running throughout the building. You know,
no, you're talking about. Yeah, no. What we had is we had, instead of a meter with one dial running around, up until a couple years ago, we had 2 of them on there, and we wanted that to keep that. And oh no, you can't have that. You can't have that because it wasn't Baltimore Gas and Electric Company. It was Baltimore Consolidated Company. It was a generation before the last incorporation.
Right.
And
still got the little Motorola hand crank record player over there?
No, but we got a thing, instead of
those are worth a lot of money nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So
we have a motor. We have a slip ring motor, as they call it, instead of a skirl. Our motor it's a 50 horse, but it stands about 2.5 feet tall, and you have to wind the motor up to get it up to full power.
So your mill was like used in the Little House on the Prairie, where Mr. Larson owned the mill with the big belt that drives everything.
Well, wasn't that a windmill or a water mill?
I think that was a water mill. Yep.
A water mill.
Water mill. They started out with a big belt with a Fordson tractor. One of the first tractors ever was. We were just after the steam era and all that. But anyway, we got motors that you can't buy today, and we've actually spent at least $10,000 on this one electric motor. But it's
Mike Travis. He says
our motor is 50 horsepower.
Lights in the house.
But it's got torque. Where in order to replace that motor with a modern day motor, I'd have to have 150 horsepower
or a gearbox
to get the torque.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too I found about these extraction lines that are pieced together are so for example, clarifiers. Well, the clarifier is higher than the outlet of the extractor. Well, now you're having to build things up or make special legs, or so there's a bunch of stuff that if anybody out there's in the same boat I am, and this is what you're looking for, make sure you do your homework. Make sure you do your homework on this stuff.
You say the clarifier is taller than the extractor?
So you'd have to lift the extractor up, in this case, almost 3 inches. So, now all of a sudden it sounds easy enough, but everything else gets lifted up 3 inches as well. So, what'd you have there? A big bag of JZBZ cups, Bob?
That's what it is. Direct from China. via
What is it?
Amazon. JZ
What is
Beezy
it?
Cups. JZ Beezy
Grafting
Cups.
cups. You know, it's interesting because you guys buy these ones direct from Amazon, you know, all the way from China. And I buy the ones that are made in the USA. I'm trying to support my neighbor, man. Trying to support my neighbor.
That's what the bag says. Well, you're supporting China. I mean, they own most of our national debt anyway. So, but so all right. Let's do the brutal session. James sent me a nice long text today. And basically said,
go ahead and read it off, Bob.
A test. Nice, froze up.
I will wait till he comes back.
It keeps going in and out.
There you
guys.
go.
I apologize. But the gist of it was, Bob, you're a dumbass, but it was very politically correct. You know?
Oh, I didn't say you were a dumbass.
No, but that's what was implied.
I gave you some constructive criticism and some pointers that I saw from my point of view.
Yeah,
What's that? Don't go in your hive for 5 days.
Well, that's what I say. Go ahead and read it off if you want, Bob.
No, I'm not going to read it. We could paraphrase. Bob's a dumbass, and there you go. No, but
so I noticed a few things from his videos. So you know, I finally got around to watching his video there from
yesterday.
Yeah, was it yesterday? So watched it there from yesterday. Now, one of the first things I noticed in his video was when he opened up his starter finisher. Oh, I'm not sure if he's trying to show us a booger.
I don't know.
We'll wait till he comes back.
Gosh.
He's giving me the finger. There you go.
Number one, not enough bees, right?
That's exactly what I said. I saw him lift up his lid, and initially I sent, and this is where I sent him a text. It's like, you don't have nearly enough bees. From what I saw in there, I figured he had about maybe half the bees in there is what he should have had. So, you know, like anybody that I know, if I can give people some pointers from things that I have learned, then that's what I want to do. I want to try and help people be successful. So one of the things that I learned right early on is, I think maybe the first, I'm going to say maybe even 5, maybe 10 times I grafted, I did the same thing Bob did. I did not have enough bees in there. Now, when I did that, I think I had 15 hives. So to swipe bees from 15 hives, initially I was thinking, man, I'm taking a lot of bees. Like, you know, I was initially concerned, but after I learned part of the problem is I didn't have enough bees in there, I filled that box up. So what I recommended to Bob was to do is to fill that box. So when he's done this first graft, I recommended that he fill that box with bees. So rather than shaking bees in the front of the box, one of the things, or one of the techniques I found, because as everybody knows, I try to save time everywhere I can. Time for me is extremely valuable. So rather than shaking them into, say, a pro nuke box and letting the field bees fly back, I skip that whole step. So I put a board down in front. I actually got a little tiny piece of carpet that I put on it. It's real fine carpet, but like a t-shirt or anything like that would work. So I take those frames of bees and I just shake them out right in front of the pro nuke box or your starter finisher box. All the field bees are going to fly home. All the nurse bees are going to start to march right in there. So, you know, I recommended to Bob that, you know, he put another 4 or 5 frames at least of bees in there. He needs double that population. When I take the lid off of my starter finisher, those bees just literally boil out the top. It is right full. You know, in fact, I have a bit of a hard time. And most of the time what I'll do is I'll brush the bees off in front of the hive so they can march back in. And that's how I got to throw the lid back on. So that was the first thing I noticed was he needs more bees in that starter finisher.
And when we had the phone call, I wasn't upset at all, was I? I mean, it's like, no, hey, this is great.
He phoned me like 2 minutes after I hit send, and I thought, uh-oh. I offended him.
No, no, not at all. I'll always take constructive criticism. And the reason I brought it up here, even, I mean, we already had the conversation. I know what you're going to say, but the reason I brought it up is for the 37 people that are watching that may want to graft. So if you guys can learn from my mistakes, hey, win for everybody.
Fill that box. I really can't. And Charlie, feel free to pipe in here, but you need that box absolutely packed. I cannot. If you think you can't get another bee in there, shake another frame out front. Like, that box needs to be absolutely packed. They should. And I think the second thing I told Bob is his feeder was out of feed. That's the second mistake. You want those bees to be absolutely just plumb filled right up with pollen and feed. They should never run out of feed. If they're out of feed, that they're not getting the proper nutrition. So those are the two big things I think that I mentioned to Bob. And then go ahead, Charlie.
No, I had the my cell builder I had last year. It was 5/5, so it was 10 frames, and it was bees from the top to the bottom. But I took the 5. It was a nuke, and I took the box off the top, and then I took the bees out of that box, and I just shook them. I shook all the bees out of the top box down in the bottom box, and then if you look out front, you know they're hanging. There's about 3 pounds of bees hanging out on the front porch. And then go ahead and put that frame in there and put the lid on it and the feed and everything. And
that night
I got to
they were
set
all
up
in the
with
box,
an inner
right?
cover, set up with an inner cover where I have a hole for a feeder jar. And then at the time I was putting liquid pollen, sub with sugar on top of the frame. So they would eat that. And then I put the inner cover on, and it had a shim underneath. It was kind of like an inner cover with a shim
so
built
you
onto
even
it.
a little bit more room to get more bees in there.
Yeah, it's like having your migratory lid, but you got a rim around it for feeding. Yep. Same principle, same identical idea.
And this is exactly why I brought the comment up. I could have just kept I could have kept the criticism to myself. I could have kept it all bottled in, the fire burning in there, the rage. But no, I wanted to bring it out. So everybody.
It is important. You need that, not enough bees. I can't.
But another way of doing it is like, all right, let's say you have if you're going to, small time, you're going to probably do a nuke. And
exactly.
For the average person. And, another way you could possibly do it is if you have like for me, all right, I got 20 nuke boxes sitting out there, 20 hives. They're all nukes. All right, I've got queen excluders for all of them. All right, if I go out there and go out there with an empty box with a queen excluder, pull out 4 or 5 frames, let's say 4 frames, 3 or 4 frames of brood. That can be, open brood, cat brood, I don't care what it is, as long as it draws nurse bees. Put a queen excluder on, put that box back on top of that hive, put the lid back on. Now, you start up here, the thing of it is, people say, oh, come back the next day. I said, you don't need to. If you start at one end and do that for every hive, by the time you get down to the other end, then go back up to where you started, those frames are going to be full of nurse bees. So
they're
now
come up there pretty quick. They come seed,
up, about 20 minutes or so, or let's say 30 minutes for the whole grouping. All right, then go back and harvest the nurse bees off of them frames. You ain't got a queen in there. So you can take the nurse bees, take that frame over here and put another box on top of your cell builder as a funnel and put that frame catty cornered and just kind of shake those bees off down on the top of the frames into that cell builder. And if you could shake bees from all your different hives, you knock them back a little bit, but you got nurse bees and they'll all, go in there and fill that box up. That's a easier way to fill that box up.
Well,
If you,
and like I say, so either way, it makes no difference whether you shake them out front onto a walking board or a marching board, or you shake them in the top. But you need that. I mean,
I mean,
if
it's a
you have,
different technique,
it
that's
is. But if you look at that box and you say, well, I think that box is full, it's not. You shake another few frames in there. When you look at that box and say, how in the heck are all those bees going to fit in that box? You will probably likely are close to having enough.
Well, when I made it, I shook what I thought was a ton of bees in there, and I had cap brood. So
he's hoping. Yeah, the cat brood's going to hatch. I mean,
Now,
over a
if it,
period of weeks, all that
right,
stuff is going to hatch, and yes, it's going to
but for
populate.
right now, for the first phase, it's not enough. So
it's not well, and so if you're going, and I highly recommend doing that. That's an excellent idea. But what you need is you need to put that brood in there where they're actually hatching out. Like you actually see bees hatching out of that brood. That'd be a good frame to put in there because that means they're going to hatch out all within probably the next 24 to 72 hours, right?
So you recommended I go in and check those brood frames and see if they're even doing that.
Correct. If they're hatching out, perfect. Right.
If they're
you've
not,
had one,
remove
if you've
them.
had one that
replace
if you've had one that's hatched out, replace it with ones that are hatching out. And if they're not hatching out, they're probably going to hatch out very, very soon. But the bottom line is you need more bees in there.
and then
the other
I'm
thing
sorry.
is when you pulled your grafting frame up and out, if I was to do that, like you had a few bees on each cup, which
Yep.
was good. They're working the cups. But when I'd pull that up, it would be literally frame to frame, end to end, top to bottom. That would be just one big mesh of bees in there if you've got enough bees. They're chaining it across and everything. So
the other thing was, if I'm remembering correctly,
gorged bees, make sure they are absolutely gorged.
and so we devised a plan, right?
Well, there was one other thing. There was one other thing that I put on in that text, right?
I didn't even get to that part. I was so pissed off. No, I'm just kidding.
I told Bob, stay the hell out of your hive.
Yeah. And I didn't go in it today. I didn't even check the feeder, which is a bad thing. I ended up working.
Well, you need to fill, if you got a top high feeder, fill the feeder. But
fill the feeder.
Yeah, I filled it yesterday.
But
I made up fresh batches.
If you graft on Sunday and then Wednesday would be about the third day, you might want to go in there and get your curiosities taken care of.
Yep.
If you can stay out there for the whole freaking 5 days, you're better off.
Right, but you don't want to graft on Sunday, go in there on Monday, check it again on Tuesday, wait to see what's happening now on Wednesday.
now
and it's tough. It is tough. Like I've been in Bob's shoes, and that's why I can sit back and laugh, and that's why I kind of sent him some pointers, is because I've been there. You're excited. You've done something new. You want to see how successful were you? And in trying to see where you're at, you're actually handcuffing yourself and making yourself less successful. And, sometimes that works against you. I'm not saying it did, but sometimes
I'm sure it did.
does.
I'm sure it did. I mean, it's everything, right? So everything you do. Did you get the wrong size larva? Did you not polish the cups? Did you check them too early? Did you not have enough bees? There's a lot of stuff. That's why I said the other day, the hardest part about it is that starter finisher.
Yep.
The grafting is easy. It's sticking a tool down in a hole and there she is. And that's the easy part. The hard part is all the prep up to that point. So
and then patience. Patience really is a virtue. And you can say that with no matter what you're doing with your bees, right? I mean, there's things that you have to act on, but there's other things that you have to let the bees do. You have to let, you can't, I hate to say it, but you can't rush the life cycle of a bee. A queen's going to take you from egg laying to hatching is going to take you 16 days. Your worker brood's going to take you 21. Your drones are going to take you 20. You can't rush that. I mean, that's set in stone. You just have to learn to work around that.
So Mimi asks, what is polishing?
Okay, so basically what polishing is in this case, Bob was using JZBZ cups. So whether you use JZBZ cups or you use a NICOT system or use whatever system you have out there, it could be homemade wax cups for, they work just as well too. But what it is you put those cups in the starter finisher for a few hours prior to grafting. The bees will go in, clean up the bottom, they'll fill in the cracks, they'll wax them all out. If there's any dust or debris in there, they're going to clean all that out. They're going to get those cups ready for the queen to lay an egg in it. So that's what polishing of a cup is.
The plan of action is Friday, remove queen cells, however many it is. Hopefully 5. If I get 5, I'll feel like a champ.
If you get 1, it's a success. Actually, you know what? At this point, I would say even if you didn't get any, Bob, this is a success. And I think I put that in the text I sent Bob as well. So this, even if he gets 0, this is not a failure. This is an incredible learning experience.
So first of all, let's clarify. It wasn't really a text. It was more like an email that came through my text format. It was a scrollable text. More, right? It was long. So he had time to think about this. It was a planned response. But at any rate, the thing is that first things first, Friday, take out queen cells. Friday, put in grafting bar for polishing.
Are you going to graft on Friday? Or are you going to graft on Sunday?
I'm waiting to see where he goes here because he's changed the plan on us.
Oh, no. Well, kind of a little. That one thing, the bars.
Take
right?
out the eggs. Let's take out the cap cells and let's put them in the incubator. That's
what he said. So that's
cap cells in the incubator Friday. I'm going to replace that with my cups that I'm going to graft so they can get polished. Then Saturday morning, I might have to remove those queen cells on Saturday morning if they're not fully capped when I check them on Friday, right? Saturday.
Yeah, I think you may be at Saturday simply because you've been into them a couple times. You've disturbed it a couple times. I'll be pleasantly surprised if they are capped Friday. They should be capped Friday, but because they've been interrupted a few times, they might not be fully capped until Saturday.
What time of day did you put that?
Lunchtime.
Did you graft and put that? 1 o'clock.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.
Noon.
So it should be Friday at lunchtime.
Theoretically, right?
So if that happens, then
you're gonna freeze.
This is going to be a long, drawn-out story.
It's right on time. It's always when I get going good. But Saturday, check the brood frames. If they're hatching, leave them in there. If not, replace them with ones that are emerging and shake a ton of bees in. More bees. And then Sunday, staying with
you missed one step back up to Saturday. You missed one step.
Did I miss one step?
You were going to make sure that you had a frame in there that was partially drawn so that they have something to work on for the wax glands and stuff like that as well.
So with the 6 frames, the grafting frame, leave it in there for them to polish and put a foundation.
You can put a foundation in there. I mean,
yeah. I think he's got some that he said were partially drawn. So I'd throw it in there and let them draw the rest of it out.
And then Sunday, back to my original schedule like I did this last week for the routine, right? So graft on Sunday.
And don't pick them till Wednesday. Or freeze.
Yeah, he's thinking about it.
Don't get into it until at least Wednesday, but if no need, there's nothing I can change in there.
Nope.
It's just, this is what the hard part is, right?
Exactly.
Because you want to know, but it's not going to change the result. Actually, it would change it in a negative way, if anything.
Exactly. So Christmas doesn't come until Wednesday, Bob.
Right. That sucks. It's like a kid.
Well, think of it this way. At least it's Wednesday and it's not Thursday.
Right. That's true. So it is it is a process, but it's a process that I'm glad that I'm learning. You know, when I was able to tell the queen breeder that I was going to come down and buy 20 queens, but you know, I'm grafted now, so I don't need to.
Exactly.
You know,
But the thing of it is, I mean, look at it this first time around as a whole, is the fact that it's a totally new thing for you, and you're completely learning a bunch of different skills, and it's like, okay, it's like anything else. You have to. You've already know what went wrong this time, and you know to a certain point. So now we're trying to correct the different key points. And so the next graft will be better.
And I'm going to graft the exact same number of cells. That way, I can
on two bars.
I can I can do it on 2 bars. And if I do
that, it's better it'll be better, I think, on 2 bars.
And up higher.
Higher.
Yep.
And if I do that and I've got the same amount of cups, but I've changed my technique as far as grafting will probably be about the same crappy as it was the first time. However, we'll be able to see the differences that were made having more bees.
Yep.
And polishing
but like I told you the other day, is that you look for the larvae or the rule jelly. Try not to find it, you know, depending on your eyes. That's a difference. You know, if you see jelly but you can't see anything in the jelly, that's the ones you want. And then you get there with those magnification unit on there, and then you start seeing all the larvae. Well, find the smallest larvae you can possibly see, and that's the one you need to graft.
And the problem is with that, in my opinion, when you're looking at the frame, the smallest larva doesn't mean it's the right age larva.
Nope.
Because they could all be equally small on that frame, and they could be too old.
Right. So here's something that I try to look for. Everybody kind of knows when the queen first lays the egg, it's not going to be straight up, but it's going to be pretty much straight up. Day 1.
Mm-hmm.
Day 2, it's going to be on a bit of an angle.
Like
Day 3, it's going to be just about down here. And when that hatches, so if you're looking for the right size larva and you see a bunch of eggs that are hanging over, and then you see some larva, that larva has probably hatched sometime within the last 24 hours. It's understanding how it works, or inside the hive there too. So when she lays up an area, she normally will lay up a patch, an area, right?
Like you say, it's like this.
Exactly.
It's elongated. It's sort of a elongated.
The straighter the better.
This is too old.
Straighter the better, right. More or less.
Excuse me.
You gotta have to. If anything, you might take a piece of paper and kind of give a drawing of each one on each position. If you are, to get a mental view of what you grafted in order to maybe go back the next time and do even better.
Yeah, it's the smallest you can see. Something
That's
like
about
that.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I just drew that freehand right now, right? But if you have this, that is almost too old. That one's almost too old. In fact, I would pick this any day over that.
Reason up, but yeah, so it's definitely.
I thought maybe Charlie froze up there too for a minute. Maybe it was me.
It's definitely, you know what? And we had this discussion. So after the first few years, I love beekeeping. Obviously, I'm on chats every single night of the week, just about. So it's not that, but it gets to a point to where it gets kind of mundane, the same stuff, right? All the time. You're going out there and checking and doing it's just routine. So starting to graft has kind of rejuvenated me as far as the beekeeping process.
It puts the bar up higher.
Well, and you know what? You never stop learning. So once you get the grafting down and you have your your colony numbers where you want them. That's where it really starts to get interesting, because now you can start getting into more of the science of the things. You can start testing for hygienics, how hygienic are your bees. You can start selecting what you're grafting from. You can start creating a genetic line that works for you. You can start pushing those limits. You can start opening up the cells and looking and understanding mite controls. You can, it just, I mean, as you guys seen, I have piles of books here for notes that I always put in there. And I've probably got, I'm going to say there's probably 80, 90 things that I want to know about the bees, but it's going to take me a bit of time to do it. So, and that's part of what I like about it is there's so much to learn and understand out there. And there's lots of great information out there. The unfortunate part is if you're looking on the internet or you're looking on YouTube, do your research, really know what is what out there, because there is probably just as much bad information out there. Actually, there's probably more bad information out there than there is good. So take it all to heart, do your homework, read the studies, read the the studies from reputable people or universities and stuff, and take your time and go through it that way. Oop.
He's still
works great for him.
Oh, there you are.
And obviously there's different goals for everybody. Some people don't
Absolutely.
need to graft. So to make a walkaway split,
Perfect.
hey, that works.
I'll make you bet there's people out there, Bob, that have never done a walkaway split. So I would encourage anybody to do it, try it. OTS, on the spot. I would encourage people to try that method. I encourage people to try everything. You're going to find something that really works well for you. You're really good at, and that's awesome. Stick with that.
Well, I mean, we had the discussion today about reasons to graft. Like a walkaway split does not work for you. I mean, it could. You just probably wouldn't have a colony that would make it through the winter.
If it was strong, if it even managed to build up, it probably wouldn't be strong enough for winter. No, it probably wouldn't make it through the winter season. Got to remember, they're in the barn by the 1st of October, and I can't take them out until, I was going to say beginning to the middle of April.
Well, hey, Michael, you do like Sam does at the moment, but I'm working on Sam. So he's going to be buying a lot of my excess queen cells. So I'm just going to keep cycling queen cells. And if I don't need them, he's going to use them. That's a big problem for Sam's business model. And I say Sam's business model because you don't see it on his video, but he tries to sell about 100 nucs every year. And walkaway splits to have nucs available and ready to sell early does not work.
Well, let's explain it why that doesn't necessarily work.
Well, okay, so you take your frame. Let's say this is just a frame of eggs and larvae and bees, and you make that split and you put that in your colony, and they're going to generate queen cells. They might generate 10 queen cells, maybe more than 10.
Maybe none. Right? It could be anywhere from 0 to whatever number of cells they could put on that grafting frame.
And then that first one comes out, and either the virgin goes around and stings all the other cells, and they start ripping them down. And she walks around the colony for 4 or 5 days, week, and then flies out on her mating flight.
Right, so we're 16 days to where she hatches, from where the egg is laid.
Then we're 4 or 5 days, right? So we're 3 weeks in already.
And then she's going to be probably, by the time she goes on her mating flight and comes back, it'll be 12 to 14 days, depending on the weather, right? Okay. And mating flights.
And that's if she makes it back. So you got one queen, you got, we'll say 50-50 odds, depending on where you're at. Here, it's probably 50-50 with dragonflies and, purple martins and all that flying around. But then guess what? If she doesn't come back, you're 3 weeks in already. Now you have.
it's almost as fun to come on here and watch his facial expressions and where he gets stuck.
So I don't know where it froze at, so I'll go back. So if she doesn't come back,
weeks.
Then you're 3 weeks in, you got to go get another frame and put that in. And guess what? Now it's another 3 weeks. So now you're 6 weeks in, right? Almost a month and a half to see if a queen comes back. And let's say she does come back that time. And in James's situation, his whole season is 3 months.
Honey flows, yep.
So it doesn't work that well for that. However,
if you can continually to have grafted queens, whether they are virgins, you're saving yourself a little bit of time. If you can put them into mating nucs, that's even quicker because now you're 3 days in there and she's laying. So all of a sudden you go from 3 weeks to 3 days. That's huge in a short season like what we have up here. So, and it opens up a huge, if you see you've got a failing colony, it's nothing for you to go and do some grafting. And, meanwhile, that colony or that queen that's failing is still laying in there. So the colony might be reducing, but it's reducing slowly. You could pinch her off. She's gone. 24 hours later, you stick the new queen in there and away they go very, very quickly. So there's benefits to both. It's what fits your situation.
Yeah, and it's regional, right? But Sam's situation, he's been doing that, and I know from experience because my first season, when I wanted to get into beekeeping, everyone said, "Well, you need at least 2 or 3 colonies." Okay, knowing me, 5. I want 5 nukes. I'm gonna get 5 nukes to start, right? And he could only produce one of those for me, and he had to cancel some people and tell me he couldn't make them. And that is I'm
going to go grab my phone so I can see the chat here too. I'll be right back.
All right.
It gives you more control and timing if you're trying to do things. I'm not saying one is more right than the other. It just depends on what you're trying to do, right? If you're just trying to split a colony and you split a colony and do a walk-away split, you might be good to go. I've done it in the past. It's worked for me. I'm not saying that's, a bad thing. I'm just saying that there's other options. Now I'm selecting the queen that I want to have queens bred off of, right? So
You're froze again.
am I?
You're not. No.
I was just reading. Honey flow don't work in cold climates. We have a long season. We do have a long season, but we don't have we have dearth in the middle of it too. So it's so
you guys have a long season down there, but you got to remember the best, and it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter whether you're up here or you're over in the east there where Charlie is or where Bob is. Your key periods are during your flow. That's your key development periods for the hive, no matter where you're at.
And some people like James can't get away doing a 2-3 frame split like we can down here with the longer season.
Well, our weather isn't nice enough for that either, right?
Right. So it's just a.
The thing of it is, like you said about you right now, why you're looking at a certain queen, it has you like the genetics that she has, you like the way she lays, and all that. So right now, you're already making genetic choices for your queens to have, or at least
the same thing James said earlier today.
But you're trying to upscale your queens in your yard.
Right.
by just doing that one little simple thing of saying, this is the queen I want to graft from. And then the other part of it is, like just said earlier, it's only your first time. Don't expect a whole lot. You've made a lot of small, I won't say even really mistakes. It's a learning thing. Oh, I didn't do this. We need to make this better, make this section better, that section better. And hopefully when we do all that, it will give me, 18 out of 20 queens on one graft.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the other thing too is you can control more of it, so you can make sure that those bees are gorged, right? You can make sure they're getting good nutrition. You can make sure that they are, the queens that you get. You can, even after the cells are capped, you can still select the genetics you want. If you've got a little runty cell, you know what? Cut her out, pinch it off, whatever you want. You can keep if you want the nice big cells, you can keep the nice big cells.
But on the other hand, the science guys have seen where the size of the cell really sometimes doesn't really correlate.
Oh, I agree. It's just, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is you have more opportunities to select the genetics you want, right?
Right. Well, I think that's where hatching your queens out in your incubator, now you can sit there and grade them.
Exactly.
And if you've got a queen here that you can see she's got a broken leg or antenna or something, you might as well just get rid of her right then and there.
Michael, I would say that's the best queen I have in my yard. I have some other colonies that are strong, but that colony doesn't have stingy bees. She lays up. I mean, I accidentally moved her to a different box and she's already laid that whole box up, right? So she's doing a great job, and she is probably the best queen that I have in my yard.
And she survived the winter.
And she survived the winter, and they were in a triple deep box. So
whether you know it or not, you're already selecting genetics that work for your area, right?
And so,
we just have to get her computer fixed. That's all.
Yeah. Now, if I only could find a computer technician, right?
Well, my computer, I don't know what's going on. It's a brand new computer, actually. It's not that old. Not even a year old.
It was made in China, wasn't it?
It was made in my living room. I built it.
Oh, well, that explains it.
And it works fine. So so that's the thing. That one cell builder is my only. It's got natural pollen in there, but it's the only hive in the yard that has a pollen patty on it right now.
Well, and that's the other thing you want to check on Saturday is make sure that, they got a good pollen frame in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as they use those resources up, you have to replace those resources. And the longer you keep that cell starter finisher going, the more you've got to make sure that you're cycling those resources in there. So you probably want to take a look at the nectar frame that's off to the side of it too. Now, here's a word of caution, knowing that you potentially have some less than favorable nectar coming in, you might choose to just stick to the feeding them the sugar water. Might not be a bad idea right now.
And
if they're taking it down as much as he says there's not much nectar coming in to begin with.
So that's probably a good thing for the rest of his hives, right? And knowing that, you might want to keep open feeding them or something until, give them another nectar source if that's the only flower that you have around there is one that's not.
I usually keep a toad out there with open feed in it that they can get if they need it.
So,
and it's just a. Let me see. He does his own thing. Let me see. Imagine that.
What's that?
Oh,
He's froze again.
I was just looking at Michael's last comment, but yeah, I'm learning, guys. I'm learning just like everybody else. I mean, it's not, and I'm sure James is learning and Charlie's learning and everybody learns all the time. But if you guys,
I learned something. It doesn't matter whether I'm on a chat, um, whether I'm reading an article, whether I'm in a book. There's always something to read or remind you of, and in some cases, some of the best lessons you learn are things not to do.
right?
You know,
Don't check your thing. The stove is hot.
Oh, like you said, with the cell builder, getting the right amount of bees in there. And I mean, I have the same problem a lot of times. Is trying to make sure that sucker's full.
What James said is the same thing that I was like, oh, man, I just feel like I'm robbing too many nurses.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt the first couple times. But you got to remember, all of the nurse bees that you shake into that starter finisher colony, they're not going to waste. It's not like you're throwing the bees away. Think of it this way: when you're done grafting, leave a cell in that colony.
And then I got another nuke.
And you're gonna have a whole hive, because
I've done that at the end of the season. I always leave the cell in there, and
exactly, you've already got your field bees. They're going back and forth. You got your nurse bees that you're always shaking in there. Introduce a queen, you're laughing, right? The only thing that starter finisher will not have is drones, right? Because they need the queen and they need all the rest of the resources before they'll start to make the drones. So that's the only thing that your hive will not have is drones, your starter finisher. But once your queen gets in there, depending as to where you are in the year, and that's the other thing I'd recommend too, and it kind of goes hand in hand, because you're going to stop grafting at a certain time of the year, and probably before, slightly before the end of your flow, so that those bees are going to hatch out, come back, and be mated before your flow stops, so that your hive can build up. And that's at the point where you just leave a cell in your starter finisher, and it just becomes one more hive for you.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm not perfect. That's why we're having this conversation, and I think there's a lot of people, DC said he doesn't want to graft until after he has 20 colonies to pull bees from.
Perfect.
Whatever, however you want to do it. That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely.
Or if you wanted to take 4 cell cups and graft 4 cells.
Perfect.
And replace, 2 queens, 3 queens, whatever you need to replace, then you can. So that's the beauty of it.
The other thing is don't be afraid to practice. So if you're sometime down the road you're gonna graft, don't be afraid to go out there and grab a frame and just practice taking those larvae out and putting them back in. Well, pick them out, put them back in. Pick them out, put them back in. Just practice.
It's just another.
It's a skill. I think that's what he was going to say. It's just another skill that you're going to have to learn to master, really, is what it comes down to.
Well, I mean, when I say tool, I mean, it's just another method, right? It's another thing you can do. Like now, this year, I've done a vertical split over double screen bottom boards.
You've never did that
before, right? So that was a first. Then we started grafting. So could I do splits? Absolutely. I've done splits in the past, but it's a different way to do the same thing. And, so maybe now let's say I don't have any more double screen bottom borders. I can't do that. Well, can I just take frames out and make a split? Absolutely. You can do that. Oh, I can't graft. I don't have a starter finisher up, but hey, no problem. Let's do a walkaway split and put one over there and let them. So there's all kinds of options. It's just, I'm trying to be, I guess, in my own mind, a more complete beekeeper.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Exactly. So yeah, little acre honeybees. That's exactly it. Don't be afraid to practice. Like you say, pull that frame out and pull out the larva, put the larva back in, go to another one, pull another one out, put another one back in. And in doing that, you're going to be able to recognize these different stages and how old your larva is. And that, unfortunately, it's really hard to get good pictures of eggs and larvae in the bottom of the cell simply because they're so small. But as you do it, you're going to gain that experience and you're going to learn that skill. And at the end of the, whether it's a half hour or 45 minutes or 4 hours, whatever it is, when you're done, drop that frame back in the hive and they're going to, the ones that you rolled over or the ones that aren't going to make it, they're going to clean out. The queen's going to lay another one in there. You're not even going to know. So, I mean, I did that quite a bit when I was learning.
So what would happen if you had a queenless colony? This is just a random thought, okay? Let's say your colony went queenless and you weren't in there. Like, you didn't check your colony and you came back. There's no brood. There's bees. There's no brood and larva or anything.
Well, I want to see where he's going with this because he's heading for a laying worker thing here. So carry on where you're at there. You got to the point where there's no queen, no eggs, no brood, no larva.
Right. You come out there and there's bees, but there's no, let's say, age appropriate bees for them to make a queen out of. Right.
Okay.
It's a what if situation. Could you not graft one cup and hang it between two frames? Would they not make a cell out of that?
They could, yep. You're talking from another colony.
Yeah, you just went to another colony
Absolutely
and a cup and grafted one and set it right in there.
You absolutely could. They probably would make a queen out of that. Yep.
Not, I haven't, knock on wood, and maybe that's something that will learn this year, but I hope not. I haven't had any laying workers.
Exactly. Yet. DCBs, it will, if you do not get in there and you do not identify what's going on, the workers will try to keep the colony going and it will come and turn into a laying worker scenario. That happens. I don't know the exact timeline. I'm thinking probably 10 to 14 days being queenless. I don't know. Do you know anything on stats on that, Charlie?
What's that now?
How long it takes for a queenless hive to become a laying worker scenario? Is it about 12 to 14 days?
Yeah, it's at least 2 or 3 weeks. I think it is. It depends on the hive itself. I think more so than anything else.
I've never had it happen. I mean, I've been queenless before, but when
I've had it happen, unfortunately. When I first started out, didn't know anything.
Yeah, I've tried to put cells in and try to put queens in and all that kind of stuff. The best thing you can do is take them bees over in a weed pile and shake them off, and take the darn box away. Don't let them come back to that.
Yep, they'll drift.
Because all they're going to do is kill your cell, or tear down your cell that you put in there, or they kill the queen or something because they think they don't need one.
Now, I have seen some people, and I haven't tried it. So what I'm going to tell everybody, I haven't tried it. I don't know whether it works or not. Word to the wise. I do the same thing Charlie does. I don't have the time to screw with them. I go and shake them out. But I have seen some people, what they'll do is they'll put a queen right colony, either on top or underneath of the one that is queenless, with the hardware cloth in between. So they can touch each other, but they can't get to fight each other. And
the pheromone.
That pheromone will go all the way through it. Now I haven't tried it. I just want to make sure everybody knows. It's where did I see it? I saw it. There was an article on it, and I think it was in an old manual, like an old beekeeping. I think it was like 1955 or 1965 or something like that.
Charlie's got a first edition.
What's that?
On this old manual that I saw somewhere. But I have seen a few people try it as well. But once again, I don't have the time to muck with it. I shake them out and move on.
Well, I'll tell you, it's 11:15. I'm going to head out. I'm not going to be here till midnight like I did last night.
Have a good night, Charlie. I won't be long either. So all right, I got a class I got to teach tomorrow night. Have a good night.
I don't have any Africanized bees here. And
So
I don't know.
we definitely don't up here in Canada. In fact, that's part of the reason we can't import from certain countries, the US being one of them. We're allowed to import queens, but we have to have the genetic testing completed, so the DNA testing completed, and that documentation must accompany them with only the queens. So we can import queens and attendants, but that is it. And those attendants, we have to have means to ensure that um, they do not, how do I put this, become part of the population.
So how would that work? So let's say I'm selling queens to you in Canada,
Yep.
and you say, Bob, I need 100 queens. I'm like, no problem. I'll get them to you.
Yeah. So basically, what will end up happening is you have to, I don't know the exact portion around it, but you'll have to take the colonies from which the queens were grafted, and you'll have to take that DNA and into your agricultural center there to get the DNA tested. That DNA results will have to come with the queens, and then those queens, there's an affidavit and everything like that you sign out to to show that those are the queens, and then you can ship those queens up. Now, we're still working through some of that
Okay.
process, but
The let me see. Yeah, Silver Gorilla says he usually shakes them out. Dreyka says
yeah,
typically when I get a laying order, it's a small split, and the queen didn't come back. And at that point, it's not like you have many bees anyway. So
exactly. Shake them out and move on. It's just you'll spend more time screwing around with that hive than what it's worth. So
my wife just walked in, so she's like trying to sneak around to the other side there, and I said,
do we have feral bees up here? Yes, we do have a few feral bees up here. They're few and far between, and part of the reason they're few and far between is because of our long, cold winters. So they're going to have to be tucked away in a well-insulated wall or attic or log or something. So we do have some. They're not really a feral bee. We got bees that have swarmed and have just found homes in the wild, I guess, if you want to call it. So, but we do have some of those. They're few and far between.
Usually, it's other beekeepers' swarms that you find.
Absolutely, yep. 9 times out of 10, if you're finding a swarm somewhere, you'll catch that swarm, and there's going to be a mark queen in there.
Let me see.
Now we do end up with quite a few swarms up here every year too. So, like everywhere else between Facebook and things like that, we do end up with quite a few swarms up here. That's actually how I got into the bees in the first place. Was I went out with some friends of mine, and it turned out to be multiple swarms, and I brought a swarm home with me. So that's how I got into it.
So Tim said, sit a laying worker colony on top of a strong queen right, drizzle sugar water, and when they get through licking, they will all be sisters again.
I haven't tried that either.
Well, I know what Sam does is he keeps a spray bottle with 1-to-1 in it, and when he takes it, and it actually has a little bit of vanilla in it too, and when he goes to add bees and brood to another colony, he'll spray it down with 1-to-1 to try to block that queen's pheromone.
Yeah,
a little bit. Let me see. I always ask, does the layer worker make fertile bees that can mate?
No. So the reason why is the laying worker doesn't have a spermathelia, and therefore doesn't go on a mating flight, and she can only lay non-fertilized eggs.
So you could have Africanized bees survive winter from a swarm. Well, not in Canada. They haven't made it up that far.
Yeah, we have none up here. No.
I mean, Oh, the cutout bees, they're kicking it. Last I was in there, they had made some queen cells with the frame of eggs and brood I put in there. So, the thing I can say about that cutout colony is they were pretty strong beforehand, right? But they were mean. So don't know if they will keep whatever queen they made. If they calm down when they get a new queen, maybe. But otherwise, they will probably get requeened as well. So pretty much my goal is to requeen every hive in my yard, especially the weaker ones.
How? Oh, I was just gonna, see, he froze up again. I was just gonna ask him how often he's thinking of requeening. So,
My friends tell me, the ones that don't send me emails or text to berate me. No, I'm just kidding.
I want you to be successful.
Every 2 years. And why am I picking to do it this year, Bob? Well, because I don't know how old most of my queens are. So I don't have I know my stronger ones were requeened last year. I know that. But that means after this season, it'll be time to requeen them anyway. So my strong ones that I'm grafting from now will be the last ones I graft at the end of the flow, right? So yeah, he didn't spray anything on the swarm catch because they're all the same colony. He wasn't adding any bees from another colony into them.
You're not mixing the bees, and that's one thing that I've noticed. I don't do that. I don't, and I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I don't shake bees directly from one colony into another. If I'm going to do some equalization, what I'll do is I'll pull the frame out with with brood or cat brood, and those normally are going to be the nurse bees that are on there, and I'll just drop that whole frame into another nuke, and I equalize that way. I don't equalize by bee numbers because they're just going to fly home. So I'll equalize more so with the brood than I will with the bee numbers. And if I'm shaking bees into another into another hive,
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw my board out front. So I'll shake them out front. I eliminate any of the field bees that are set in their ways. They're already going to fly back. So really, if I'm doing that, only the nurse bees are going to be walking into the new colony. But I equalize with brood.
Michael, the swarm that Sam caught was not at his own place, and he wasn't called to go get the swarm. He happened to be going there to check somebody else's colonies, and there was a swarm there in the tree. So he wasn't prepared to go catch a swarm. He just happened to catch a swarm when he went to work the bees, and that's why he didn't spray them or do any of that stuff, because he didn't have any of that stuff with him, which he actually says in the video that he didn't come prepared to catch a swarm when he went there.
I caught one swarm last year, and it was from a student of mine. So her nuke that she got off of me was so strong that it ended up swarming on her before she got. She put a second box on, but if the box was just foundation, it wasn't drawn comb.
They don't realize it as space.
That's no space, right? So they swarmed on her. So what I ended up doing is I caught that swarm. I took that swarm because it was from my apiary. I took it back to my apiary, which was, I don't know, 8-10 miles away. Kept it there for 3 days, and then I brought it back, and we reintroduced it into her hive. And the way we did that is we opened it up. She did have a virgin queen in there. I took that virgin queen out. I crushed all the rest of the cells, and then merged the two together using newspaper. So I basically reintroduced them right back into the box that they swarmed out of. But I did it this time by giving them some additional drawn comb. And her colony was just busting after that because she had already laid it up. they were all right back in there. So the only bees she lost were a virgin queen. And that virgin queen I actually took back and I introduced that into one of my mating nukes, my mini mating nukes. And that she actually got mated and came back too. So, there's always things that you can do. You just have to understand the golden rules of beekeeping. And then, once you understand those, then you're pretty good. And for anybody that's on there, if they're new, the golden rules are, first one, you need to know the life cycle of a bee. You need to understand. You can't change that. There's nothing you can do about that. That is something that every beekeeper must eat, sleep, breathe, walk, talk by. You can't change that. And then, some of the other ones are, the rules of moving a hive. If you're going to move it 3 feet, you might as well move it 3 miles and then move it back. Just the simple rules like that. And once you understand those, then you can start to manipulate your bees quite a bit.
Yeah. So Michael, you with Sam's got 15 acres. A lot of it is wooded. He keeps all of his on his property, but he's got a few spots that I don't know if he's managing the hive or just helping people out there. But when he says nursery, it's not his nursery. It's a actual flower nursery up the road where they have some bee colonies out there. So yeah, his video titles are somewhat vague to, but it is what it is. I mean, he makes good content.
So Michael's comment there, catching a swarm, always good to put eggs and brood in a hive. You're catching them in, right? So that probably is a good thing to do. Brood is an anchor. That's something that I learned from Brad, right? Brood is an anchor. If they've got brood and eggs and stuff in there, they're going to anchor those bees right there. Their natural instinct is to look after that. That's the next generation, right? So that I've never done it, but that probably sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah, that's what everybody's told me. And then they always say, like with a swarm, keep it locked up 2-3 days or they'll fly back out.
That I absolutely do. I catch a swarm, I absolutely do keep it locked up. That gives them time to more or less move in, make their home, if that makes sense.
Just throw a bottle of feed on them.
Yep.
And let them roll.
8 swarms last year. That's pretty darn good. I caught 3, but they were my own bees.
So you made 3 natural splits.
Well, I did, right? Once again, being a sideliner, I have a full-time job Monday through Friday. So I do from time to time try to zip out there in the evening if I can, but my big working my bee days is Saturdays and Sundays. I get every second Friday off too, so one week it's a Saturday, Sunday, the next week it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I've set my whole schedule up around grafting and everything right around my work schedule too. So it works out really good. Also in the fall for oxalic acid treatments, every 5 to 7 days. I'll do it a 4 cycles in there, so I catch more than a single brood cycle. So it works out pretty good.
What about making that swarm tree, letting them swarm some?
Well, I do stick a swarm trap up at every apiary that I have now. The problem I have here is the big black buggers that come and rip my swarm traps out of the trees. So we have a big problem with bears up here. So all of my apiaries are inside electric fences, and the last 2 years in a row, my swarm traps have been pulled out of the trees by the bears, and they usually not in the best of shape when they get done with it.
Let me see. Swarm. I've wondered about making that swarm tree I talk about and letting them swarm some.
I don't know what a swarm tree is. Just a tree with a swarm trap in it?
Maybe it's just a trunk of a tree that's been converted to like a swarm trap. And
that could be. So there's lots of experiments around that.
Extracting them out might be difficult. Getting them back out there.
Exactly. I think they said what, a 30-liter container, I think.
I think 40
is it 40? So like I say, there's been lots of research done around that as to size, and I don't know if there's anything absolutely conclusive, you know, as
Well, it
to
depends on the size of the swarm too, right? If it's a big swarm, they need more space than they do a little
if so,
swarm.
you know. The way I look at it is if I put a swarm trap up, I have a chance of catching a swarm. If I don't have anything up there, I have zero chance of catching my swarms.
He says a tree with Bob's bullet strung on it like Christmas ornaments. That's funny.
Do they light up? Do they glow in the dark?
Put some LEDs, some glow sticks in them or something.
There you go.
That'd be funny. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting bee year. I'm excited about it, and obviously we're talking about it all the time, which is good.
Well, and once you get this down pat, like I say, there's so much more. You know, you're the more you learn, and I've said this I think on multiple chats, but the more I learn, the more I realize I have so much more to learn.
Right.
You know, they're amazing little creatures. They're amazing. You know what they can and can't do, and you really aren't going to control them too much. You can kind of guide them a little bit, but they're going to do what they want to do. You
Right.
can just try to help them along and manage it, right?
And you know, I'll say it again, nothing we talk about on here is necessarily the right way for you, you know.
Oh no.
So
No.
it's just nice to have several options, right? Several things. Well, that didn't work. Well, let's try this.
Exactly. Well, and like tonight. So I mean, don't take my word for saying you need more and more bees. So that's I'm one beekeeper, but go and take a look at you know, some very well known beekeepers. So Bob Binney has a great you know, how he does his bees, and he'll tell you the same thing. In fact, that's where I learned the technique of shaking the bees out front was from Bob. You know, take a look at Ian Stepler's. You know, he'll set up, depends what he has. He'll have like 3 or 4 starter finishers going. They're packed right full of bees. Cayman's got a really good, if you're doing with a nuke, he's got a really good video. That thing's packed full of bees. Look at Brad's. I mean, they're all the same thing, and yeah, you literally can't get enough bees in there.
Let me see. Yeah, and old boxes.
Why are people selling nukes for $100? So here's a question for the people out there. Let's say it's a 5-frame nuke, and now everybody's open to do whatever you want. So I'm just going to throw that out there first. But if you have a 5-frame nuke, you're going to pay probably what, $2 for the frame, $2 for the foundation. By the time you get the wax on it, you know, and the time invested in it, let's say the ease of math, let's say $10 a frame. So you got $50 worth of frames and foundation and wax in there. You're going to have the bees. So you're probably going to be 3 pounds of bees, if not 5 or 7 pounds of bees in there, right? That's worth $25. You're going to have a queen. You know, what's a queen worth down there? $40?
$40, yeah.
You're over $100 already, and you haven't even included a nuke box. You know, if you look at it strictly from a financial end of things, and myself trying to become a commercial beekeeper, where the dollars and cents matter, you're going backwards. So if somebody's selling them for $100, they're losing money, and that's not conducive to a good lasting business plan, if you would. Now, anybody buying that nuke, if you can buy them for $100, that's a good price. I'd jump all over them.
Right. But Bob, he does the same thing, 5-frame and 6-frame. Florida cheaper bees, but he has to feed. Yeah, so I mean,
you got to be careful with some of those bees too. Now, I I haven't purchased any of those bees. I've talked to some people who have. Once again, I'm going to refer to some of Bob's bees and some of the big commercial beekeepers that are honey producers. There's a reason they don't go to the pollination anymore. Some of those bees that you get from down there, and in fact, at Hive Life, Bob did a really good speech on what was probably in that wax, and it is probably everything in that wax from those pollinating hives that you do not want in there. So I would say go and take a look at that and see what it is. Like I say, he did a real good talk at Hive Life on that exact topic. So
Yeah, this is but Steve-O. I like Steve-O's stuff, but he says they're mean as all get out half the time, and he can't work without getting stung. But it's very entertaining. That's my money. That's me.
Bob laughed at me because when I first started coming on some of Bob and Lee's chats here, they asked me that question: what do I do if I have a mean hive? I pinch a queen. I don't even bugger around with it. Pinch a queen, drop a new queen in there, a couple days later, and carry on. Those genetics are going to be turned right around in 21 days.
So you do because you're grafting.
I can do that because I'm grafting, exactly. Now, this year I'm following Ian Stepler's battery model, right? So I will be working. So for example, I'm going to have 30% in nuke. So that's the number that I learned once again from Hive Life, from the speech there with Ian Stepler. So he keeps on what he calls his battery, and I'm going to adopt that method. And once again, anywhere I can learn, or I don't want to say copy, because copy doesn't necessarily work, because no matter what the method is, you have to make your own spin on it to make it work in your area. But for all intents and purposes, I'm copying it with a few spin-offs. But having 30% nukes as a battery of which I can draw from at any time, if I've got a weak or failing colony, so for example, I got one that turned into a laying worker, shake that one out, I'll go bring a nuke back over to fill that spot up, and I'll just carry on. Like I won't even miss a beat, right? So that's kind of the benefits of learning from these guys that have been out there and have done it. So.
Well, I mean, it came in helpful for me when I had those nukes last year, because I was able to take the nuke, and I've had a weak colony. Matter of fact, it's right where my mating queen is right now, the one I'm grafting off of. I was able to take a nuke and drop it right in that box, and I didn't even think twice. Took the whole nuke, dropped it right in the middle. Boom. They took off and produced a little bit of honey. Now, did they end up making it? No, but that's fine, because it's a rebuilding year. It's, we're redoing things this year. So,
well, and I still don't know. Like, I still don't know what I'm bringing out of the bee barn. I know I've lost 2 nukes, but I also know that those nukes were, how do I put it, weak in bee numbers, and they were weak in feed, going into the barn. So those are 2 that I put in fully expecting them not to make it through the winter. As far as the rest of them, I won't know. And I mean, February and March is really the test. February and March is where, especially, I'm told that keeping your bees indoors or outdoors for that matter, up here, February and March is usually where they run out of feed. They run out of stores if things weren't done properly. I'm hoping I'm all right, because I put that added medium on there of insurance. So I'm hoping I'm good. I've only had one hiccup with my my heating system in the barn so far. So otherwise, they have pretty much stayed between about 3.5 and 4.8 degrees all winter long. So, I had that one day that, like I say, a heater run away, but I don't know what's coming out of the barn yet. So,
right. Well, one thing I've learned And y'all can take this with the.
I'm thinking he's going to say a grain of salt.
It's cheap is not always better.
Absolutely not.
I bought some cheap nukes last year, and not one of them made it through the year. Not even to winter. They either got robbed out by a stronger colony, or the hive beetles or wax moth or something eliminated them. They just didn't make it. And so when I sell a nuke, I sell it how I want to buy it, right? So it's 3 frames of brood and 2 food. And if I do the inspection the night before the customer comes up and there's not enough bees in there, guess what? I shake extra bees in that box with them. And that way, when they open it up, it looks like they're getting their $200 worth.
And that's what you want. Like I said, I had complaints last year. I think I told everybody. In fact, I had one very common complaint from people who bought my nukes last year. And what did I sell? I think I sold, I can't remember, 38 nukes. No, 40. I can't remember, 48 nukes maybe. But everybody had the same complaint. My bees are too strong. My nukes are too strong. And that's a good complaint to have. Now, this year, I think I mentioned to you guys, late after the chat yesterday, I've got people now wanting every nuke that and commercial guys wanting every nuke I can muster. So the word's getting out there, and that's a good thing, because selling those nukes at the beginning of the year is part of my business plan. It'll continue to be part of my business plan, and it is an important part of my business plan, and it's an important part to becoming a successful commercial beekeeper. So I will continue to make my nukes the way I did last year, and if the nuke is not where I want it to be, I will not sell it.
If
Froze up again.
That's this point, right, where you have the number of colonies you want to have. If you, let's say it's 100. If you get to 100 colonies and you only want to stay at 100 colonies, then they're either going to swarm on you, or you have to start selling bees to keep your population regulated.
Right.
And so, it's easy. Buy them and sell them for $200, easy money. Yeah, but I have to drive to Florida and to get them. And I don't know how many he produces, but I've got some deals working for nukes, and I really haven't advertised that I sell nukes. It's just people that have bought queens from me in the past have asked me, "Are you selling nukes?" Or
Mimi bees, you can't go wrong if you are following what Michael Palmer does. I don't think that guy is amazing. What he knows when it comes to bees. I think if you're doing what he's doing, I think you're going to be successful. So I don't think anybody, no matter how big or small you are, can question what Michael's doing down there. The guy's amazing.
Yep. He's talking about doing walkaways. He does a walkaway. Yep. And then don't bother him. And that's the thing. He gives them 1 month. He's in Florida. He gives them 1 month.
I've lost a third of my season.
Yeah. If that's the thing, he's in Florida. So if he gives them 1 month and they don't take, and he gives them another frame and then gives them another month, well, now he's 2 months in before he can sell that nuke. So let's use
that. I wouldn't have enough time for them to build up to make it through the winter.
And let's look at like Sam's. If Sam did that exact same thing, and he has 100 nukes, how many nukes does he have to make to ensure that he gets a mated queen and a nuke?
Exactly. So what do I sell my nukes for, Eugene? So I'm working with a local store up here in Grand Prairie, Alberta called Be Natural. I've worked with them, so they sell all of my nukes. So obviously they're buying them off of me a little bit cheaper than what they're selling them for. But a nuke up here right now is being sold for anywhere between $350 and about $450, for a nuke, and that's a strong nuke. The nuke prices last year went through the roof up here. Now we had a major, how do you want to put this? Some people lost between 50 and 80% of all their colonies up here last year. And what kind of sets the price for the nukes up here is there's a sale over by Winnipeg every spring. Last year, a nuke over there, I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it was right around the $600 mark, Canadian for a nuke. So
that's still like $400 or $500.
It is. So I mean, the biggest problem we have up here is trying to get the number of bees, right? So I try to make sure that I'm selling mine for a fair price. That's part and parcel of it too. Just because I have them doesn't mean that I'm going to continue to sell them. So last year I think they sold for right around the $320 to $400 mark. So this year to be $350 to just over $400. They really haven't gone up in price at all in the last year.
Well, back to the nuke price thing that everybody's talking about is you got to remember, if you're selling a nuke, just like with your honey, it's presentation.
Absolutely.
If you're giving them an old nuke box you built out of half quarter or scrap lumber or something, and they're bringing their own box or to swap it in, okay, they can do that, right? I mean, if you want to do that,
it's going to be presentation and reputation.
And if you buy these boxes not by the pallet, they're $20 a piece.
Buy them by the pallet. They're $9 a pop.
That's
froze up. There you go.
That it's for me, even if it's a gesture box, it's a known box is what they come in, right? Yep. And so for me, it's about that. When somebody comes, they're going to get a full box of bees. It's going to be in a nice box. And if they don't want my box and they bring their own equipment, they'll get a discount if I swap frames over for them. But it's just one of those things that the market here, to give you an example, I went to a local beekeeping store last year. I've got it on video. There was some nukes that weren't picked up. I didn't even plan on buying nukes, but I went in there. And these are my carnies that I was talking about. And I went in there and they had some nukes left over that nobody picked up. So they gave me a discount so they could get them out of there because they were getting ready to swarm.
Oh, froze up again.
I brought them home and they did good through the season. And then all I have left now is 2 of those 5 technically I've got 3. That 1 2-framer that we were working on, she's still laying just a little tiny patch over at my mentor's place. And so it's just one of those things that you don't know how old that queen is. I didn't know. James asked me, well, how old are your queens? Well, I bought the nuke this year, but she did real good. And then winter came and she just dwindled. The whole colony dwindled down to nothing. So
yep.
You just don't know what you're getting.
That's a buyer beware. So make sure you're asking the questions. If you're buying nukes, make sure you're asking the questions. Know what you're getting. Are you getting a 2-frame, a 3-frame, a 4-frame, a 5-frame, a 6-frame nuke? What are you getting? But then ask, what does that 5-frame nuke consist of? Is it 2 frames of bees and a frame of pollen and 2 frames of foundation, well, that's not a 5-frame nuke, right?
Right.
Ask the questions. How old is the queen? When was the queen put in there? Is it a mated queen? Is it a virgin queen? What year was the queen? Ask these questions. It's really a buyer beware market out there, but know what you're getting. I've
Well, I
seen
mean,
I've seen virgin queens come in them, in the queen cages. I've seen 2-year-old queens come in a nuke while she's already done. Um, just make sure if what you're buying out there, buy from somebody who's reputable. Ask the questions. Do your research.
yeah, that's I mean, and that's 100% accurate from my experience. It's I've bought cheap nukes, they didn't do good, and they were from the same area, they just didn't do good. I've bought expensive nukes or standard.
Oh, standard across the board. So, we'll wait till he comes back.
Froze again.
There you go.
But the thing is that the thing is that, honest to goodness, the best bees that I have are the bees that I've split myself off of my colonies.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then why ain't I making my own queens? Why am I?
You are now.
Well, yeah. That's kind of where we gravitated to, right? It's come full circle. So that was the thing. Yeah, Qdix is charging that much. Texas Bee Supply is charging more. It's just one of those things that it's very much driven by your area, right? So you'll go to Mr. Sam, and Mr. Sam, he'll sell a nuke for $185. Okay, it's $185, but you're bringing your own box. You're not getting his box, and he's not putting it in a pro nuke or a jester nuke. So you figure if you have to add that onto that price, then $205 is where you're at.
Yep, exactly.
So,
it's what works for you.
Well, thanks for your comment there, Avery. We appreciate you stopping in, and I really appreciate your watch hours. Thank you for you stopping into a beekeeping chat to call it garbage. Thank you.
So, you gotta love it.
Yep. I'm
trying to build up for my own stock. More than likely, will take away. Absolutely will. And you know what? I think that's a great thing to do because you know exactly what genetics you have. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. Let's face it. You can dump a pile of money into this very, very quickly. But at least then you know exactly what you're, what you've got. You know what genetics you have. You know where your bees came from. So building up your own stock is a great way to do it.
Well, Kentucky guy, I'm going to blame James because James lit a fire under my behind this year. After hearing his success story from last year, I was like, what the hell? Why? What am I doing wrong? And the fact of the matter was, I wasn't really doing anything wrong. I just didn't have a direction I was going in. So I was kind of just going through the motions. And because I was just going through the motions and didn't have a goal or a plan, I was unable to reach any goals, right? Because I didn't have any.
No, you had a direction. You were going this way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
I gotta keep this notepad handy. That works well for me.
So the James went from 15 colonies to 78 colonies out of his own stock by grafting good, healthy queens from his own stock and genetics. And you were able to sell nukes through your splits off of those 15 colonies.
So last year, exactly. So from the 15 colonies, I built up, I put 78 into the bee barn, And to answer the question here, what type of business is this? This is this is beekeeping. So I am a sideliner. I have a sideline business where I make bees. I sell bees. I make honey. I sell honey. I instruct students to try and encourage them to learn about beekeeping, to learn about pollination, to learn about the benefits of beekeeping. So everything from honey, which is the one everybody knows, but everybody always overlooks the other financial gains that you can get from it. So propolis, pollen, wax, instructions. It's huge. Like um, this is what this chat is about.
And that's how we started the whole stream, Kentucky Guy. About refreshing, right? We talked about refreshing my starter finisher.
Yep.
And stuff. So that's that was the whole gist of the initial conversation on here is grafting. I started that. Things I needed to improve on my starter finisher, and different tips and tricks. So
and going back to the what is it, Avery? These channels aren't for everybody, and I would encourage anybody that wants to come in here. I can learn from anybody, good comments or bad comments. I would ask that try to keep them constructive though. I was born and raised where if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. And like I said, for everybody else that's on here, I appreciate your comments. I enjoy looking at them, and I'll answer questions for anybody. Once again, back to earlier in this here, I sent Bob a long text to try and make sure that I could help him out, so he could learn from my mistakes, so that he could learn from my experience.
And guess what? I still made some of the same mistakes.
Absolutely, and you probably will, because you know what? I was the same way. I'll tell you a story. So I was over at the neighbors when I was a kid, and I don't know if you guys know what goes on with surveying or seismic for oil and gas exploration. So they'll come, and what they'll do is every so often they'll drill a hole. And the old way is in that hole they would lower down a charge off of a cord, and they would set that charge off, and of course they would read the seismic waves as they bounce down and back to understand what the geological formations and oil pockets and stuff like that are underneath the ground. So as a kid, you never learn from anybody. So I can remember the neighbors, their father saying, you know what, the seismic boys are up north, so you kids stay away from there.
That's exactly where you went.
Onto the quads. We were up there. We're pulling these seismic charges up out of the holes. Right now, they put a plunger and stuff down there, so to try and keep them down. But we're kids. We pull these things back up out of the holes, and we're holding these charges, and we had some laying on the ground. And what we didn't realize is they were all tied together, right? So as we're driving down the next one, this charge went off behind us. We could have been holding that damn thing, right? And that's where I learned, you know what? Okay, people usually are looking out for your best interest, and sometimes you might want to pay attention.
There's Randy. I don't have my phone in here, Mike, so I can't check it at the moment. It's actually in the other room.
Pallet hive, nice.
Hey, Randy. Yeah, all mine are on stands at the moment, but if they start making good honey, I might have to drop them down to the ground like everybody else does.
See, then you can start looking at maybe two-way pallets.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just more.
Kind of fond of them myself.
More cost. More expense. But
and that's the other thing that people have to understand in here is I've built my sideline business up so far from an initial $10,000 investment. So 10,000 Canadian dollars, that is. And everything that I bought from it has come from that initial investment. So that's part of my challenge too, is to do this without costing me an arm and a leg.
Right.
So,
And, you know, some of the stuff that I do, it becomes it to how much do you value your time based to the cost of doing something, right? Like
correct.
building your own boxes compared to buying boxes, or building, you know, whatever. I mean, yeah, there's tons of cheaper ways to do things, but you know, do you have a day job? Do you have time to do that? You know, like
Well,
in your instance, you got to do 2,000 frames. I don't know how far you're into that because we haven't talked about it lately, but
they haven't been delivered yet. So I'm starting to get a little concerned about that. I got the foundation, you know, so I'm starting to wax that foundation, but the frames haven't been delivered yet. But, and you know what, when you're building a business like this, depends how deep your pockets are, but I'm going to go back to Nate at Duck River Honey. You know, he's in the same boat kind of I am, where it's interesting because I'm watching his channel to see what he's doing versus what I'm doing. And he's decided to go the infrastructure route first. I'm going the bee route first. You know, so it's interesting to see we're doing the same thing, but on a different path. But both of us, our biggest investment is sweat equity, right?
right,
Neither one of us have got, you know, huge pocketbooks, so you have no choice but to do the you know, make the investment through sweat equity and work. I mean, I'm a skilled craftsman. I can, you know, I can turn something out in the shop relatively quickly. You know, so for that, it makes sense. The other thing is I'm located so far away from any major city. You know, I can't drive down to Man Lake, or I can't drive over to, you know, up here we have Dancing Bee, but Dancing Bee's in Winnipeg, which is what, 18-hour drive. You know, I can't buy boxes put together. The freight would absolutely kill me. You
right.
know, so you crunch the numbers as to what works for that too.
And you know, well, you went with Premiere this year on frames, right? Or no?
I went
Or just
with
on foundation?
Premier Foundation, yes. So I had an issue last year with the foundation. I couldn't get my bees to draw it. So I talked to him down at Hive Life, and they sent me up frames to make up for last year. They didn't charge me anything for it. I had to pay the freight. Um, so they've asked me to give it a fair go again and let my viewers know what comes out of it. So just from that customer service alone, and the fact that they're willing to stand behind their product, I've kept the 3,000 frames or pardon me, the 300 frames that they've sent me. They're going in straight out of the box, straight from the wax. I'm going to document that and show it to everybody. But because of that customer service, the other 2,000 frames I bought from them as well, simply because good customer service. They're one of the first people in this industry, them and Pierce, that stand behind their product and have like I say, they took the time to phone me up and say, you know what, we watched your videos, we heard your story, something wasn't right there, we want to make it right. To me, that's huge, you
Right.
know. So so yes, I've got 2,300 pieces of foundation sitting in the shop here, ready to go in, and that's what I'll be using going forward.
And the 2,000.
Oop. The 2,000 frames, I think, is what. Let's see if that's what he was going to say.
What I was gonna say, I can
There
hear
we
your
are.
audio the whole time.
Oh, can you?
Yeah. The does the
You're gonna
now
ask something about the 2,000 something.
yeah, the 2,000 frames, was the price comparative to like a Man Lake or something like that, or
They were,
they,
yeah, absolutely. So here's what I was doing. So originally I was buying my boxes from one of two locations, either Lewis and Sons or Dancing Bee. So Lewis and Sons commercial boxes, or Dancing Bees. I think they call them the Superior or something like that. But that's the boxes that I bought, and up to this point I was using Dancing Bee frames as well. The Freight started getting a little bit high on Dancing Bees frames. So there's a commercial woodworking shop here in town. He started making frames this year, and as far as I can tell, dimensionally they are pretty much, I don't want to say identical, but um, they're close enough that they're going to work in my extracting line all to be the same. So I have purchased 2,000 frames off of him here. So now he's a local producer. He's building boxes and frames here. So he's giving them to me for the same price, less the freight, because I don't have to pay the freight from Dancing Bee. So for me, that's a great deal, and I can support somebody locally.
Right. Well, yeah, he says, Steve said learning how to manage 200 hives would be a challenge. Working your way up a little at a time allows you to adjust your methods.
Exactly. Well, and you have to remember, if you look at my video from last January, when I decided to go make this into a sideline business, my goal was to go from 15 to 25 hives into the winter. I went from 15 to 78. So my biggest problem last year was I had no drawn foundation, so everything was raw foundation. I was continuously running out of equipment, and those were my biggest hurdles that I couldn't get over last year. Oh, Randy's off. Have a good night, Randy.
So this year, you've got those hurdles tackled so far, as long as your frames show up.
Well, I've got pallets built. I got an additional 25 pallets, so that's 50 hives. And then I've got an additional 10 three-way pallets, so that's an additional 30 nucs. So if everything goes good, I'll be just over 100 hives and about 35, 36, 39 nucs. So if everything goes good, I will have 100% high or 100 hives and my 30% battery to back it up. That's kind of my goal for this year. We'll see where we end up.
And then that leads you to the biggest bottleneck you have is your honey processing.
Correct. So that one I'm trying to solve this year, and that's where we started off at the beginning of this chat. Is I'd love to drop the 50 grand on a brand new processing line. It's a little hard to swallow. So I am looking at all of the other equipment out there, but I'm finding that equipment's not matching. A lot of things are just, for lack of better terms, patched together. You can find somebody that's selling
nicely.
Well, I've tried to be politically correct on here, right? This could be a family show, but yeah, when you got clarifiers that don't fit underneath your extractors and things like that, hives into a builder fast. I do. So if you take a look at some of them last year, and I didn't do a very good job last year because I was. I'll do a much better job this year, so I'll try to show them a whole lot better this year. But I found myself last year, because my bees were doing as good as they were, if I wasn't building equipment, I was splitting hives, and in fact, I was splitting them as fast as I could build the equipment. So I will do a much better job of how I did it and stuff like that. Now, once again,
but
I'm robbing the way I do it, or I'm trying to adopt Ian Stepler's way. So Ian Stepler has a really good video on how he splits his hives into the 6-way pallets or 3 different ways. So if your hive is strong enough, you can easily get three nucs out of a hive, quite simply and quite easily. So that's the method that I've adopted. So I don't want to say it's my method by any stretch of the imagination. I have made some minor changes to it, but that's about it.
Now, with that being said, you've also now you call it a crop failure, but in all of that splitting and growing, you still were able to make 3,800 pounds. Now let's keep that in perspective. 3,800 pounds in Canada, where you're located, is not average. It's below average.
Oh, it's way below average. So our hives up here should average anywhere between 100 and 110 pounds a hive minimum.
In here in the States, we're
in,
about 55 a hive.
in some cases, you'll get 200 or 300 pounds out of a hive. So with 78 hives to only get 3,800 pounds of honey, that was an absolute crop failure.
But I guess I'm saying that so in the States, if I duplicate your model, attempt to, I'm not expecting anywhere near that honey, but just by virtue of having more colonies and making strong splits and then building up faster, I should, even though I'm not focusing on honey, I'm not worried about the honey number. I'm worried about the colony number. And by doing that, I should, in effect, have a larger honey number.
Absolutely. That's just by the law of numbers, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, that's plain and simply just the law of numbers. More bees are, even if they bring in a smaller percentage, you're going to end up with the same or maybe more honey.
And more drawn comb.
And more, exactly.
So it's one of those things that, yep, you can, in fact, in South Carolina.
I didn't realize it was that cold down there, man. You're freezing up an awful lot here.
Know what's going on with this.
There you go.
But in the fact we can in fact make smaller splits here. However, the time that it takes them to regenerate is longer because they have less bees, and she's only going to lay up to what she has bee power to cover the brood and take care of.
Which is why stronger splits work better for you. You have more bee power. That queen can lay more eggs. You have the bees to keep it warm, to feed the larva,
to draw foundation, to
all of the above. So this is where more is not necessarily better. You want to go. I think somebody mentioned it here: quality over quantity. That is a prime example. You split them down too far, you're just knocking them back too far.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think we ever have
enough drawn comb. Exactly. Stop and think. So I've got 2,000 frames that I am going to try and get drawn this year. In perspective, I'm trying to draw more comb than I currently have. I'm trying to draw more than double my comb this year, and that comes at a cost. It's 6 to 7 pounds of honey for 1 pound of wax.
Yeah.
So there's a huge cost to building it up like this, and anybody that's doing it has to understand that is part of the investment, and there's no easy way to get around it. Now, I did see somebody was selling a manufactured frame with drawn comb, but I think it was like $40 a frame. Well, do the math on that. If I'm if I'm going to buy at $40 a frame times 2,000 frames,
you might get a cost break though if you.
Yeah, the cost break will be my wallet. That's what'll break, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to have $150,000, $200,000 that I could drop into this and just go. But the reality of it is like any business, you got to have a return on investment. You're far too often, I think, debt gets far too many people. So I'd just as soon take an extra year, maybe 2, to build this business up without huge debt, be debt free, and then away I go. I think personally.
But then every year you have a bigger base of drawn comb, so you're in fact exponentially growing your honey crop.
Right. And
so over time it does get larger.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing too is your investment's getting bigger, right? So what is if you were to buy a full like a full beehive down there, what's that worth?
Oh, like 10 frames?
10 frames, yeah. 10 frames, queen, equipment, everything. $1,000?
Old Seth Hill down the road here in Georgia, he's selling them for $200 for a 10 frame deep.
The whole hive?
The whole hive, box, top, and bottom.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you couldn't get that.
But he's one of Bob Binney's guys, so you don't know if he's getting Bob Binney's old equipment.
Well, I think he did. If I remember a bunch of his equipment, he did. But, I mean, even if you go at that, let's say, I think $200 a hive is extremely low. It's probably closer to, like I say, if we're buying a nuca bees up here last year for $600, a full hive, including the equipment, is probably $1,000 just for ease, right? So I started last year with $15,000 worth of bees, right? I put $10,000 into this, so I'm at I'm at $550 here, 2 deeps. There you go. Okay, so I put $10,000 into this, so I was at $25,000. If you use on average up here, let's say just it's for ease, even if you said, well, 550, that's $42,900 worth of bees and equipment that I put into the barn last year, paid for.
Right.
So,
and if you got people willing to buy all of your nukes, if you ever decided to get out, you could just.
Well, I was just going to say, exactly. I could sell all of that tomorrow and have money in the bank, and show me any investment anywhere that you can do that kind of return on an investment like that. You just can't. But it doesn't come easy.
Right.
I gave up my weekends, I gave up my evenings, but that's part of building the business now. It's also something I want to do. So you could argue the other side too. Well, how much did I pay myself an hour? That's actually built in there. If you go back and you take a look at my videos, that's all in there. So it's all out there. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's all on my videos. If anybody wants to go back and take a look at it.
And with that being said, I think we've been on 2 hours and 18 minutes, and it's midnight here. 20 after actually.
Yeah, it's quarter after 10 here, and like I say, I got a bunch of brand spanking new beekeepers that are going to absolutely question the dickens out of me tomorrow. So
right,
a good night's sleep tonight's a good thing. Oh, and he froze up again. I did get a deal on some drawn out plastic foundation. These still take a while to get to use it. Absolutely, they will.
So the hopefully I'm not late to work like I was this morning, but hey Steve, anytime you want to join in, man, just click the link. I've got it pinned on YouTube. You can jump in. Anybody can jump in. That's kind of the format that we have. That's why we put the link out there. So you can come in and be a part of it and be a part of the talk. It always helps. The comments.
Exactly. And it's great to hear that, we're answering somebody's questions. So, I've even learned a few things here tonight from seeing guys like Dirk Rooster and, Silver Gorilla and stuff like that. I mean, I find something every single night. So,
and he always watches my videos and finds out what not to do and then sends me emails.
I really want to see everybody successful. I think we need more beekeepers out here. And like I say, if I can help any of the viewers out there or anything like that, that's my goal. That's kind of what I want to try and do here. Do I know it all? No. Have I made the mistakes? Yes. Am I going to make much more mistakes? You bet. And I'll continue to share them all with everybody.
Randy said he didn't realize how costly things are up there.
Oh, they're expensive up here. Absolutely. Like I said, last year, if you see Brad, I think Brad and Ian actually did a video on it last year. I was over there actually visiting Brad. I think it was either just before or just after the auction. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, a nuca bees went over there last year for $600. It actually knocked the socks off of everybody. I don't know how. I don't know how I'd be able to make money if I had to go spend $600 on a nuke every year. I mean, it would take me 2 years to pay that back.
If it makes you $2,000 in honey, though,
is it going to do that the first year?
Probably not.
Hard to say, right? I doubt it. That's why I say it'll probably take me 2 years to pay for those.
So, anyway, guys, we're gonna call it a night. I appreciate you, James. Thanks again for your tips.
And he's froze again. Good night, everybody. While he's getting unthawed, I'm going to go to bed.
All right.
Have a good night.
We'll see you later. Good night. Good night, guys.